There was a subject today about the difference between a trained mind and an untrained mind. And the difference shows itself particularly in difficult situations, bad situations. When everything is going well, then even the person who is the most emotionally unstable, when everything is perfect for him, he will look stable, happy, contented, no problem. But when everything falls apart, that's when you see the difference between an untrained mind and somebody who has a trained mind. Ajahn was giving the analogy that it's like our dog Dada, who has a kind of phobia of loud noises. In particular, every time that there is a thunderstorm, he is utterly terrified and has to come inside. Even more so if he hears a gunshot, which you occasionally do around our place because we're in the middle of the forest and people go hunting around. So the moment he hears a gunshot or a thunderstorm, you will see him running around in circles, desperately looking for a way to get in, barking, going completely mad, crazy. This is what the mind of somebody does when they're suddenly put in a situation that they were not prepared for, that the things to which they are deeply attached are in danger or in trouble. For example, if somebody who has always had quite good health suddenly is threatened with having cancer or threatened with having a serious health condition that would impact their whole life or maybe that would even kill them. Now, they might be suffering physically a little bit, but they're suffering so much more mentally, so much mental anguish, anxiety, worry about all what will they do, what might it be, what will happen to this or that, I didn't finish this or that, or just pure fear, probably not physically running around in circles, but the mind running around like the dog when he hears the sound of thunder reminding him of a gunshot. In contrast to the dog, anybody who has trained in the army or served in the army, even better, for a long time, who is familiar with the sound of gunshots, for him it's nothing terrifying, it's nothing even unusual, and even he will know he hears the sound and he's able to tell, okay, that's the sound of this type of bullet of this kind of gun, or oh, it's coming from that direction and probably about this far away. So he'll know if it's normal, if it's not normal. He knows what to do about it. There's no reason for him to panic because he's been trained for that. And in the same way, somebody who has trained their mind, they can suffer all the same things. They can suffer loss of money, loss of property, loss of health, loss of relatives, or something that threatens any or all of these things. But for them, it doesn't come as a shock, and it's something for which they have trained. Like the army officer, they are experienced in this subject. It's not that this kind of thing has happened to them all the time, so they've just got used to it. No, it just means that they were not closing their eyes to the fact that you can't keep anything you have forever. They were not closing their eyes to the fact that everybody has to get old, they have to get sick, they have to die. And because they were not closing their eyes to those facts, they were preparing for it, ready for it their whole life. They were training their mind for these very events. So while for somebody who has an untrained mind, let's say to be told that they have cancer, it's a shock, it's a horror, it's something that they dreaded hearing, that they never imagined hearing, that they tried to hide from the possibility of it their whole life, and now it turns their whole world upside down. It sends everything crashing to the ground. But for somebody who has trained themselves for this, hearing they have cancer is just like, okay, yeah, how could it be otherwise? This body is subject to disease and it's subject to death, and now here is disease. Here is possibly even death. It couldn't be any different. Another example that we like to use to talk about a similar point is the difference between a duckling and a baby chicken. They look similar, but the difference shows when you put them in the water. The baby chicken can't swim and it will drown if it goes in the water, but the baby duckling can float. It knows how to swim. This is the difference between somebody who has an untrained mind, being like the baby chicken, and somebody who has a trained mind, being like the baby duck. The water that they will both have to go in or both have to touch at some point, it represents all of the different troubles that life can throw at us, the different stressful situations, the different problems that we have to face, the upheavals, the difficulties, the challenges. Anything that will tend to throw our mind into distress, into despair, into worry, into anger. When the baby chicken touches the water, he just drowns. So this is like somebody who has an untrained mind. When they are faced with great troubles, great difficulties, they will drown in the emotional disturbance that will arise in their minds based on these events. But for somebody who has a trained mind, they can have the same events, but they will not become emotionally disturbed. The emotion can touch them, just like the water also touches the baby duck, but instead of falling into it and drowning in it, they can float, they stay on the surface. So this is what it means to have a trained mind, that you are able to watch over your mind in such a way to not allow any emotion overwhelm you, to not allow the mind to be disturbed either by pleasant or unpleasant emotions. And it's because of this that whatever is happening outside, you have your own refuge inside. So that's again the difference between somebody who has an untrained mind and somebody who has a trained mind. Like the difference between our dog who is so terrified anytime he hears a sudden loud noise, and somebody who was served in the army and knows all the different sounds that a bullet can make, and he is trained for that. Or like the difference between a baby chicken and a baby duck. One drowns in the water of emotion, while the other one floats on the surface and stays dry.